If you're a shop owner listening to this right now, I know, or I hope, that you have garage insurance. Well, today we have Alex Whittit from Intrepid Direct, who sells garage insurance to shops. And he's talking about gaps that a lot of shops have on their policies. You may think you have a great insurance policy, but you're not going to know until you need it. And by then, it's too late if you're missing something. He's also talking about cyber liability. This is something that's new to the game and we all need to know about it. So he shares some really cool information that I honestly hadn't even thought of before and so much more. So stay tuned for today's episode and let's dig in to some of these things that I think we all need to be aware of.
Welcome to Body Bangin', your podcast for all things body. Auto body, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Mickey Woods of Mickey Woods Marketing. Mickey is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Body Bangin' podcast. On today's episode, we have my friend Alex Whittit from Intrepid Direct, which is an insurance company. And most insurance companies won't come and talk to me, Alex. So I'm glad to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we do a little bit of a different insurance. Like we're on the body shop side.
Right. So you're doing garage insurance, correct?
Yeah. So all things for the collision centers. Yep.
Awesome. So Alex is at the Southeast Collision Conference and spoke earlier today talking about kind of insurance ins and outs and that kind of stuff. So we're going to pick his brain a little bit today on what he already talked about. So if you could share with us, what was the biggest thing you felt like you talked about today in your session?
Yes. So the talk in general is just about coverages and what to look for in your body shop business insurance policy. Probably the biggest thing today is regarding cyber liability. It's an extremely hot topic, in the news with everything. Collision shops also have exposure with it. So I say that's the hottest topic, probably in insurance in general, and it applies to collision shops as well. People want to know how they're supposed to be getting covered for cyber liability, what to look for, how much it costs, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was just talking with somebody about that the other day because everything is going digital. And how do you protect yourself with
for sure.
all of this?
And then they're also getting a lot of requirements pushed onto them. Rivian, for example, if you're getting a Rivian OE certification, they're going to require $1 million of cyber liability, which is a pretty large amount. So different ones are doing that. There's some insurance carriers that if you have a DRP program with them, they're enforcing it as well. It's coming. It's a kind of updating field, but eventually everybody's going to require you to have cyber liability, just like you're required to have general liability. So, yeah.
So I'm going to ask the stupid question. So what what would be the cyber crimes that you're trying to be protected from?
Sure. So the body shop themselves want to be protected. The obvious part is like if your files got hacked into and they closed down your computers or anything like that.
Okay.
Ransomware has become incredibly popular. Even within the body shop industry, there's a lot of body shops out there that are getting ransomware installed on their computers. A lot of times it happens from like a phishing email or something. You open up the wrong email, locks up your computer, and then they tell you, hey, you got to pay X amount of Bitcoin to release your computers back to you.
Right.
So that's the first part of it, is protecting the body shop themselves if something happens to them. The bigger part, probably, the more exposures on third-party liability. So that'd be like why Rivian is requiring $1 million of cyber liability. What Rivian's afraid of is a body shop not having adequate cybersecurity and Rivian's system getting access to their computers. So think about like cars that come into a shop nowadays, cell phone numbers are stored in them, addresses are stored in them, contacts are stored. All this stuff is stored on the computer within the vehicle.
Yeah.
Now, if your body shop gets access and that computer or the computer inside that car gets access through your body shop, you're now liable for that. So that's third-party liability within a cyber policy.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. And the ransomware is no joke. It is not at all. For real. I work with a local dealership on behalf of my body shop that's local. And the amount of money these people are trying to extort, and it happened quick and fast and locked up everything. I mean, they were just dead in the water because without your computer system, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it was crazy. I don't know exactly how they ended up working all that out, but it's real and it's big. And I've heard of it happening a lot now in the collision industry. So
yeah, the cyber criminals they're not picky anymore. They used to go after your big businesses, your hospitals, your things like that. And now they literally I think they just kind of, it's a throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks strategy for them. They send all this stuff, and whatever kind of business opens it, they don't really care. They're going to try to extort you for money to release your computer system back to you.
Yeah. Crazy. So crazy. Well, and I do know, I think about that just as a vehicle owner. I know that my vehicle has so much of my personal data on it. And it's like, what if this car gets hacked? Potentially then because we have like Apple CarPlay in so many of our vehicles, and it just patch right into my phone. I don't even know. The whole thing kind of freaks me out. It's so cool and it's great, but it's like, I feel like we're opening ourselves up quite a bit here.
Yeah, so this is crazy. This had nothing to do with me, but one of the presenters, Mike Anderson, probably heard of him before.
Yeah.
He was talking about earlier today, if think about when a car gets totaled out and that car goes to the junkyard. Now, if you have your home address stored in there, your phone number, and your garage, you press the button, open your garage. So someone goes in there and gets that information, they can call your phone, see if you're home, and if you're not home, they have your address and they can open your garage. So to me, that was like, whoa, I hadn't thought about that before. But yeah, think about that when your car gets totaled. All that information is stored in that CPU of your car.
Right. Yeah, it's creepy. I had heard that a while back when like you have your navigation set up in your car, and a lot of times you can just click go home or something like that. Them saying set it for somewhere like down the street, like another street away. So that way you get to because you know how to get home when you're in your neighborhood.
For some inconspicuous name, right? Like not home.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
John's house.
Yeah, exactly. We're totally getting off topic. But anyway, So Intrepid Direct sells insurance. So oftentimes when you're going to sell these insurance policies to shop, are you selling policies across the country, or are you guys just in certain states?
Yeah. So we do sell nationwide. So we're an actual insurance carrier. So it's a little bit of a different relationship. We're not an agent or a broker. So if you're dealing with us, that's the direct in the name. Right. So you're working directly with the insurance carrier. But we are nationwide.
Okay, cool. So then does that mean you're traveling nationwide?
Yes.
Wow.
So I don't go out to like individual shops most of the time, but I do go to quite a few events like Southeast Collision Center, or conference rather, and ABAT, the other large state association conferences, different industry events, SEMA, stuff like that. So I travel a decent amount around the country, trying to get out to different events.
Hey, would you like to increase the number of cars in your drive? Well, look no further. The Mickey Woods marketing team provides collision center specific marketing. We use proven techniques to not only increase your sales, but put money in your pocket. Visit us at collisioncentermarketing.com, or you can find my personal contact information in the show notes. And let's get your 2022 off to a body banging start. So what do you feel like is the most kind of like frightening thing, or something that you feel like shop owners are like, that hadn't thought about when you do these presentations or speak?
It's honestly always changing. I'll give you like a real current scenario is just building values. We look at I see, insurance policies all the time from shop owners. And we don't evaluate, or shop owners haven't evaluated building values within the last couple of years. Well, building values are up about 20% in the last 18 months. So people are just like shocked at what a building is worth now. If you have a $2 million building that's been at $2 million for 2 or 3 years, that building is worth $2.6 million now. So you really need to be increasing your insurance coverage, because if you're not, and there's a total loss that happens, it's not going to get rebuilt. And if you have like a co-insurance clause on your insurance, you could pay a penalty for having it underinsured. So not only is it not going to get it rebuilt all the way, you're going to pay a penalty on top of it. So that's probably the most like current event, but there's a lot of them. Just trying to make sure, looking through policies and things and making sure people are covered and not having gaps in their insurance.
So it's one of the things you do to look over. So if somebody's concerned about their policy, they could call, I don't know, would it be you to have somebody kind of review that to make sure that they're where they need to be?
Yeah, they can call or email me directly. But yeah, either someone on my team, myself or my team would review that policy. So a lot of times we'll have people send us their insurance policy. We kind of use like an Excel spreadsheet and do a comparison. Hey, here's what's on your policy. Here's what's on ours. Here's kind of where we'd recommend you go. Here's a gap you have in coverage. If you're over covered, that doesn't happen too often, but we'll point out if you probably don't need this. But that doesn't happen too commonly. It's more so trying to make sure there's no gaps or anything. What's happened over time is, particularly right now, insurance costs are going up with inflation. Everything's going up right now. So what agents and other people have done to try to keep costs down is to cut out coverages, right? So, but no one ever notices that until you have a claim, and then you're like, well, why wasn't that covered? And it's like, in order to keep costs down, we kind of cut out these coverages and kind of gave you a bare bones policy. So that's stuff that we point out. At least at minimum, make someone aware that something is or is not covered on their policy.
Yeah. And oftentimes those things aren't really, it cuts it down, but they don't really cost that much more to have them in. And then when you need it, you're so glad you have it.
Yep. You're exactly right. Because the things that make up the bulk of the price are things that you're going to have covered. Like you can't get rid of your workers' compensation insurance.
Right.
You can't not cover the building. You can't not insure the vehicles. Those are the expensive pieces of it. So yeah, those add-ins aren't generally that expensive. But still, everybody looks for a way to cut a little bit of cost. So inevitably, those things get nixed. And then if you end up in a situation where you need it, that's where you run into an issue.
Yeah, it's funny. This is off topic, but on topic at the same time. I had a home warranty claim a home claim. And I had a massive flood in my downstairs. And I had AAA for my home insurance. And it was an absolute nightmare dealing with this home claim that I had. And they were trying to, it was funny because I'm like, this is so much like the collision industry. They were like, no, we're only going to pay this. And it was like, that's not even close to what it's going to take to fix this thing. And then probably about 6 months later, still battling with them at this point. And I saw like on a mom's group on Facebook, somebody said, well, what's a good homeowner's policy? We're looking to get a new homeowner's policy. So all these women are weighing in. It's like thousands of women on this board. And people were saying, oh, I have so-and-so. It's great. I have so-and-so. It's great. And I wrote in there and I said, for all of you saying you have a great insurance policy, how many times have you needed to use it?
Never.
And they were like, oh, well, we haven't, but we really like our insurance rep or whatever, whoever it was. We really like these people. They're really easy to get a hold of if I have questions, but you've never needed to use it. So it's like, you don't know how good that insurance policy is until you need it. And unfortunately, it's not till you're missing things until you actually need it. And then it's too late.
Yes. Yeah. That's the very unfortunate thing about that. If you've ever looked through insurance policy or even a quote, they're pretty long and there's a lot on them. For a collision shop, I mean, even our quote, it's no different. And we try to keep it simple, but I mean, it's still 18 pages long. The policy's 200 pages long.
Right.
So if you're trying to figure out what's covered on there, if you're not fairly experienced with insurance, I mean, it's difficult to see what is or isn't covered on there, or what you should even be aware of, and how coverage works, or how something would apply.
Totally. Yeah. For so many reasons that we don't have long enough for this podcast, I will say that is 100% having somebody that understands the policy, because it's not our job. We're professionals in our field. You guys are the professionals in your field. We rely on you to let us know. Like, thank God for my home claim. At the time, I had an insurance agent that literally loaded me with stuff. But I think that's part of the problem we find with people just trying to penny pinch and just get the lowest costs. And we see that happen in the collision industry all the time. People get these crappy insurance plans because they're just trying to save a buck. And then they can't understand why it doesn't cover anything when it's time for their vehicle to be fixed. Well, because you didn't pay hardly anything for that policy. That's part of it.
Yeah. So, but anyways, and then as far as like collision shop insurance goes, a large part of it is also being with a company or an agent, even if it's not like us at Intrepid, an agent that truly understands collision insurance, because most insurance agents out there don't insure collision shops. If they have a collision shop, that's the one collision shop they insure.
Right.
So we insure over 1,000 garage locations nationwide.
Nice.
Attend a ton of conferences like this. We're involved in all kinds of industry events. Obviously, we get out here to meet people, but it also helps us stay informed. Hey, what's going on in the industry? What's coming? How can we make sure we're adapting and changing our policy and our procedures to make sure that we're best covering collision shops?
Totally. I think that's something worthwhile to say. And I appreciate that. Well, if you can send me your information, I'll link it down in the description below for people that are listening and interested, and possibly just, I would say it doesn't hurt to have somebody look over the policy that you have. You may think that it's great. You may think it's perfect, but it never hurts to have a second set of eyes on it, because you just don't know what you don't know.
Yep. Completely agree.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Alex. I'm sure, I wish I could have been in your little class today, because I'm sure you spoke more on all of this. So maybe I'll have to have you back on so you can get into more detail with this kind of thing. But I appreciate your time. And thank you for trying to help the collision industry cover their asses.
Thanks for having me, Mickey.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for listening to today's episode of Body Bangin', and we will see you next time. Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things auto body.